Oh, hang on. My mom's calling. Mom, I'm just on another call. I'll call you back. All right, ta.
Welcome. We are Neil,
Luke and Dave.
340-somethings, reminiscing on the runners and riders of 90s guitar music.
We look at the bands who soundtracked our youth on both sides of the pond and interview some of our heroes from the bands that defined a generation.
You'll hear about the good, the bad and the ugly of 90s guitar music.
This podcast is Stupid and Contagious. Right, episode 48, Stupid and Contagious podcast. Got Miles Hunt from the Wonderstuff, Event 414 on today. That's a good one, right?
Brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. So we'll get onto that a bit later. Since last time we spoke, we have a new government and England are in the semi-finals. So, a few big
It's a good
things. Week. Don't really need to talk too much about politics, do we? See what happens.
Let's give them a week.
Yeah.
We can change the country and then we'll start pounding on them if we can't.
Luke, been listening to your mixtapes this week. I don't religiously listen to them every week because I don't have time, but I went back on some of the ones I hadn't listened to. And I say it again, not just saying this, it's part of the podcast and people are only missing out if they're not listening to them because they're good fun, aren't they? Because you just don't know if you put them on shuffle, you don't know what's coming next. It's good.
Yeah. Well, don't put it on shuffle. I spend a long time sequencing those fuckers. Don't
put it on shuffle. Yeah, don't do that.
No.
If you are watching this on YouTube, then please do remember to subscribe to the channel, leave us a thumbs up and get involved in the comments below. And if you are listening, then please do rate review. I did go and have a look at the ratings and reviews this week. And we have got quite a few, but we could still do with more. So please do take the time to go and do that because it really does help it sort of... I think it shows it to more people the more ratings and reviews you've got. So please do remember to do that. We really do appreciate it. Someone gave us a 3 out of 5. Unbelievable.
Fair.
That was me.
It was Dave.
Fair enough.
I like to be fair.
3 out of 5 is better than nothing, I guess, isn't it?
It's better than 2 out of 5.
Dave, what's been going on in Berwick this week?
I've got COVID.
Oh, have you?
It's been going around. Yeah, it's been going around like wildfire.
That's what happens when you have all those couple swapping parties over there. It's going to go around quickly, isn't it? How are you feeling?
Contagious as hell, isn't it? Oh, quite bad. It won't be, I'm sure it won't be that bad. Also, though, there's a mad dog escaped in the village.
What
From
happened?
A pit bull. Well, I don't know what happened to the owner, but it just went running around the village. It terrorised Otto. It's been terrorising other dogs.
Did they get a dog catcher?
The police had to come. Police.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Did he get arrested?
The dog?
So.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happened to the poor thing.
Yeah.
Got led away in
the slammer.
handcuffs.
Yeah.
It's probably dead.
Yeah.
They probably just kill it, don't they?
Yeah.
You must have shit yourself when the pit bull came running up to you. I would have. I hate mad dogs.
Neil and I walked near us for a field the other day and there were horses in it.
Yeah.
And Neil just ran away, just left me for dead to fend for myself. He was just off as far as
Every man for himself. Don't trust horses.
The horse is not going to attack you, are they?
Look at the size of their heads. It's not right.
He just made one step towards us and then he started running away.
Don't trust him.
Yeah.
But he's not used to the countryside.
Too big.
No, he's not. Yeah.
Luke, Tokyo, what's been going down?
Well, apart from being ridiculously hot, I'm getting ready for my trip.
Yeah, getting ready for some acid.
Not that kind of trip. No. It's a work trip to Korea.
North Korea or South Korea?
Going for South this time.
Right.
Yeah.
Try and get it into the north while you're there.
Just sneak in.
Defect.
Yeah, just do a bit of recon.
Do you remember the band the Pipettes who my friend was in?
I think I remember the name. Yeah.
They were big in North Korea, apparently.
How do they know? Nothing comes out of North Korea.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like Willy Wonka's factory. Nothing goes in or comes out.
But chocolate came out of Wonka's factory.
I'm sure you can get chocolate in North Korea.
All right. Should we get into this week's subject matter? Miles Hunt from the Wonderstuff.
Let's do it.
So yeah, Miles from Wonderstuff, really glad we got him on. We've been trying to get him on for a while. So yeah, we were really happy with that one. Luke, I mean, tell us a bit about the Wonderstuff for people that don't know.
All right. Have you got a descriptor for me?
Hang on, let me get it instantly for you. Oh my god,
Yeah.
idiot. Alternative rock band. They use that all the time, don't they?
Yeah, it's a catch-all, isn't it? I mean, they're in the Grebo scene, so indie Grebo, that kind of thing. So I won't go into too much detail because he actually goes into quite a thorough kind of explanation of it in the interview. But they formed in Stourbridge in 1986, so mid-80s, and before that, as he explained in an interview, from 1981, they were in a band called. So it was a band called From Eden. So this band had Miles and Malcolm from the Wonderstuff, and also Clint and Adam from future Popularity Self members.
Have you heard any of their stuff?
No, I couldn't find it online either.
No, I don't know if there is anything around. No, but I'd like to hear it. Be interested to hear what that sounded like. But...
So basically, Miles got kicked out of the band, and they went. It explains it pretty well, but yeah, they kind of went their separate ways, and the Wonderstuff, kind of the classic lineup was put in place. So it's Miles Hunt up front. Did you know that his uncle was in Wizard and ELO as a keyboard player?
Didn't know that.
Malcolm Treese, Rob the Bass Thing Jones, and Martin Gilks.
Is that his real name, Rob the Bass Thing?
Yeah. Basically, it's signed to Polydor at their first album in 1988, Eight-Legged Groove Machine. Do you want to hear how Melody Maker described it at the time?
Go on.
Immaculately crafted, unmistakably British pop songs.
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah?
Is that how you describe it?
Oh, sorry, I haven't finished it. All of the requisite 3-minute length. That's a Melody Maker quote.
Right.
What was the biggest hit off that one?
It was It's Your Money, I'm After Baby. Well, it got top 40, number 40, so it hit the top 40. Just
scraped.
And there was another track, A Wish Away, was also a single from that. That was reasonably well known as well.
That was before our time, though, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah, 88. So
yeah, we weren't cool enough then to listen to that sort of stuff.
But to me, it sounds a bit more like early 90s indie rather than 80s indie. It doesn't really sound that 80s. Second album came out a year later, in 1989. Hub singles from that, Don't Let Me Down Gently, got to number 19, so a top 20 hit, which got a spot on top of the pops. Yeah, and another track, Golden Green, was released as a single. Rob, the bass thing, left the band and went to America. And sadly died a few years later, died in 1993.
Oh, fuck. Didn't know that. That's always sad. Yeah.
Drugs.
Dave hates that story, doesn't he?
He does.
Yeah.
Too common.
It's a waste.
Yeah, and apparently his girlfriend, or I don't think they ever got married, was like an ex-girlfriend of Sid Vicious. So I guess she had a thing for junky rock stars. I don't know. But yeah. I don't know if that's true or not. I just read that somewhere. I haven't seen it anywhere else, so maybe it's completely wrong. If it is, then
it's slanderous if it is.
Yeah, it's not really. I'm not really accusing anyone of anything. It's not really slander.
Nah.
I'm not sure exactly when, but around this time, Miles married Mary Ann Hobbs, the Radio 1 DJ. So they're kind of building up their fan base. By now, like the whole Grebo scene's kind of come together. You got Neds, Populate Yourself, all three of them from Stourbridge, right? Which is insane if you think about it. It's like 3 big bands coming out of Seaford or something like that, right? It's pretty amazing.
I don't know. Stourbridge is bigger.
I think it
than
might be a
Seaford.
bit bigger than that. But...
Is it?
Similar.
Yeah.
Eastbourne?
Eastbourne, yeah.
Let's say
maybe.
Eastbourne.
Yeah.
It's like 3 top loaders coming out of Eastbourne.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah, at the same time.
Hell.
At the same time. Yeah.
Horrendous.
You should ask them on.
I think we've probably blown that one.
Yeah, they might listen.
We'll try.
I can live without having them on.
Love to talk about Uncle's Big Mocker and who come up with the name.
Thing is, Dave really likes him. You could do. You might have to interview him by yourself.
Yeah.
I haven't heard it.
Uncle's
I
Big
haven't heard
Mocker.
Uncle's Big Mocker, no.
Give it a listen.
It might be a
No.
masterpiece.
Yeah, imagine if it's a brilliant.
A lot of people have. That fucker sold millions of copies, man.
Yeah, only because of that they released that song 15 times.
That was the cover. So yeah, building up momentum, playing loads of gigs, touring the country, the Grebo scene's going strong, everything's great. And so then they had their big hit, The Size of a Cow, came out. I think it came out just before the album. Top 5, so number 5, which is a big hit, right? Especially at that time, you had to sell a lot of records to do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so third album was their biggest album, basically. So Never Loved Elvis came out. Catapulted them into the pop stratosphere, basically. They became more of a pop band than an indie band. So again, we talk about it a lot in the interview, so won't go into it now.
It's massive, wasn't it? Yeah.
So yeah, 4 singles, Size of a Cow, number 5, Welcome to the Cheap Seats, number 8 in the charts, Caught in My Shadow, 18, Sleep Alone, all big hits. And then they followed that up with their number 1 smash with Vic and Bob of Dizzy, which was great.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, good, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah. Have you seen the
Bit of
Top of the
fun.
Pops? I watched that a few weeks ago.
I remember it at the time. I haven't
Not
watched
recently.
it, rewatched it. You know, everyone loved Vic and Bob at the time as well. So it's just a really good collab, wasn't it?
It's good. It's fun. So yeah, they hit their peak basically. And then their 4th album didn't come out for a couple of years. That's Construction for the Modern Idiot. Again, Miles talks about it a lot in the interview, but it seems like their heart wasn't quite in it by that point.
No.
Although they were still having hits. Their On the Ropes EP got to number 10. They had another couple of top 40 hits from it as well. But they, by the end, they'd had enough of each other, and they broke up in 1994.
Yeah.
Miles formed Vent 414 almost immediately. They had a much kind of rockier kind of rock sound and totally new look. Like Miles got like a shaved head, like tight black t-shirts.
That's right.
And they were like, heads down kind of rock band. And that first album, which I've been trying to get a copy of for a while, that was produced by Steve Albini.
Was it? I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
God rest his soul. We'll talk about it afterwards, but yeah, obviously Morgan's on that one. And
Yeah.
He's
So
just
Morgan
great,
from Senseless
so.
Things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderstuff kind of got back together in 2001, and they've continued ever since in various different guises, basically. According to the list on Wikipedia, there's 18 kind of members and past members listed. So, It's just kind of different kind of incarnations have been going on and off for the last 20 odd years. Miles has been doing some solo stuff, enjoying life, the odd Wonderstuff gig. And they're doing some, I think, 35th anniversary of HUP, the record HUP tour this year. So, yeah, that's where we're at with the Wonderstuff.
Yeah,
That's them.
I mentioned it briefly in the interview, but yeah, I saw them at Shine On. They were great. Let's have a listen to the interview and we'll come back and we'll have a chat about what we heard, watched, etc. Yeah?
Yeah. Come on.
Do it.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Here's Miles Hunt from the Wonderstuff. Enjoy. Miles, thanks so much for coming on. How's it all going? You're on a solo tour at the moment, is that right?
It's not really a tour. I just do occasional acoustic gigs, mainly around the weekends to keep myself out of trouble. Well, keep myself out of the pub, basically. It's just too tempting where I live, just to spend all my time. And now the pub garden's open. And
It's tempting, right?
it is very tempting. So
sun's
I was
shining.
going to ask, so how come we're doing this at lunchtime? Don't you two have jobs?
Well, this is Luke's fault.
It was my fault. I'm in Tokyo. So
Oh, are you?
There you
it's
go.
9 o'clock at night over here. So I've finished
lucky
for the
you.
day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yes. So we have to sort of work it around his weird time over there.
I've
yeah.
I've not got a passport anymore on purpose, because I don't want anyone to make me go anywhere. I've spent my life going to places under duress, but the only place I would consider going to again and therefore having to renew my passport is Tokyo.
Oh, come on. Come on. Yeah.
Go and say, look, he'll take you out.
Yeah, come on. Come for a beer. The beer gardens are on top of the department stores over here. They're high up in the city. They're cool.
Oh, right. I didn't know that. Last time we turned up there, there's a fella, wait, I don't know how they know what flight you're on. I don't know how they know what hotel you're staying at, but there he is at the airport waving. Then when you get to the hotel, he's waiting at the door. He knows you're going to load in. And he's got all his old Wonderstuff records with him, and he wants them all signed. And it's brilliant. And so I looked at him and I said, Erica walked into the lobby and said, "You're not going to like this. No one's smoking in the lobby of the hotel." And so I looked at him and I'm like, "What's happening?" And because I've always thought of, other than walking down the street, once you're indoors, smoking is compulsory in Tokyo, but they're cracking down on it. So no one's smoking in the hotel.
Yeah.
And so I looked at this guy and I'm like, "What's your name?" And he said, "Kazu." And I says, "Kazu, I need an indoor environment where I can have a beer and a fag in about 15 minutes. Can you take us there?" And he took us to, sadly, he took us to an Irish bar.
Right.
So Irish bars in Ireland, fine, but I don't go all the way to Tokyo to sit in a faux Irish bar.
No,
so I'm like, this is good, and I know how you have to watch all your P's and Q's when you're dealing with Japanese people. So I didn't want to be rude at all. And he's like, you like, and I'm like, it's all right. It's a sort of a Japanese bar, and that was even nearer to the hotel. So I think he just tried to find us somewhere that felt like home.
Right.
And then we spent the next 3 nights in this brilliant little Japanese bar right by the hotel. Yeah, it was great. But and we kept him out with us 3 nights in a row, and the poor guy had a job. And
that's great.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff.
I last saw you guys play at Shine On last year. How was that? Did you enjoy it? Yeah, did you enjoy that one? It was good, wasn't it? I enjoyed it anyway.
I like Shine On. I do. I mean, I'm there pretty much every year in one guise or another. I don't think I had a good gig that night. We'd played in the summer, and we were playing sort of smaller venues. We weren't doing the O2s. We were doing like college rooms and smaller independent venues. And I'd really got used to how the sound is on stage when you got the drum kit up your arse. And I'm like, oh, I like this. I like this. And so stepping out onto the Shine On, I mean, it's entirely my own fault because they offered us a sound check the day before. So I could have been aware of that sort of cavernous sound, and I've done it. I've headlined that like three times before. So I personally didn't have my favorite gig. I came off in a bit of a mood. I just felt no connection with the band, and probably more importantly, I felt no connection with the audience. It just felt too cavernous, so I wasn't prepared. But as I say, entirely my own fault. And when we came off stage, everyone was like, "That was great." So
the crowd loved it, didn't they? Yeah, it's like a big old tent in it, Shine On. So it's a big old room to sort of fill the sound with. So, don't know. I really enjoyed it. Are you playing there again this year on your own, aren't you, this year?
Yeah, I'm doing one of my acoustic sets on I don't know, the center stage or Reds, one of those 2 rooms, which I think are great. They're much more comfortable for me. I mean, I wouldn't, Christ, if they asked me to do an acoustic set on that big stage, I'd just say
that's massive, isn't it? Yeah.
You gotta connect with the audience. That's the most important thing to me. And if I found it difficult with the band, then I wouldn't be able to do it on my own.
Yeah, those, like you say, those other smaller venues that Shine On, they're great anyway, aren't they? I saw Sleeper and Rialto there last year. They're cool little gigs.
Oh, great. Yeah, I saw a bit of Boo Radley's and a bit of Mickey Burreni Trio. And I've done an acoustic set in one of those rooms before, and it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. I was sort of doing a bunch of gigs at that time where I was playing stuff from that last solo album that I did. But I looked at that audience and I spoke to a lot of people during the afternoon who weren't very happy with some of what should have been the major performances.
Right.
And I'm like, I can't try out new stuff on these people. So I just I put my stool away, I put my lyric book away, and I just played everything that I've got that's muscle memory that I thought they'd sing along to, and it worked. So
Yeah.
You've got to give them what they want, haven't you?
Exactly that. It's not my. I've come to this point now where, doing my acoustic gigs, I'm almost at war with the audience, because it's what happens is you get a bunch of people get together. So perfect example was like Isle of Wight. I did a year or so ago. And all these people that are sort of my age and a little bit younger have moved away from the Isle of Wight. But I was doing a weekend. So, all right, we'll go and stay with mum and dad. So they've come from the mainland. And it was a whole night of watching people go, I knew you be here. I knew you be here. And so people are then all, I haven't seen you in ages. And they're all back on the island for the first time with so many of them together. And they spend the night reminiscing of what good times they had in their youth when they were all together there, which I've just got a talking audience. It's just like, shut the fuck up, Willie. I'm trying to do something here. Or shall I just stop and join you at the bar and we'll just have a night out together? And I started to think at that point, like, there's no point in asking audiences to shut up. I charge what I consider to be a fortune to watch me piss about with an acoustic guitar, and I think now it's their night, not mine. So I sort of have to go.
That's a good philosophy.
Yeah. All right. Well, can we go back to the beginning then? Can you talk a little bit about putting the band together and the whole kind of with Neds and Populate Yourself and everyone coming together at the same time?
Well, me and Malk out the Wonderstuff, we'd been in a band with two of Populate Yourself, Clint and Adam. So that started in like 81.
81?
Yeah.
That's early. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I was only like 15. I was the drummer. Clint Mansell was a singer, Malk guitarist, Adam Mole, keyboard player, and then there was another guy called Chris who played bass. And then they sacked me about 2 years into it. About 83, they sacked me, and I carried on drumming just for a few local bands. And they got Graham Crabb, who of course became the other singer in Populate Itself, to replace me in that band. And then they split up. Malk was at a loose end. I drummed in a band with Malk for a little bit, about 85. And then I just thought, drumming's too much like hard work. And, if I forget a lyric, the audience forgive you for it. Or if a guitarist misses a bit of a riff, nobody really cares. But if the drummer balls this up, it really is. I felt sorry for every drummer that I've ever worked with, because if they mess up, it can throw everybody else off their game.
Absolutely.
And the bands that I was seeing, they were rock bands. Honestly, I just found it exhausting. And halfway through the first song of any gig that we're doing, I'm just like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it to the end of the song. And that was my headspace for the whole of a gig when I was a drummer. So I packed that in, and then I heard Malk Treese had got a drummer and a bass player. No, he hadn't got a bass player. Yes, he had. He got a drummer and a bass player, and they were looking for a singer. By which time I was writing my own songs and making little demos, playing rhythm guitar and singing. So I called Malk, but bear in mind, he sacked me in 83. And then in 85, I left another band of his, so I left him high and dry there. So to work with me again was not a dream come true for Mal. So I just says, no, I don't want to drum. I want to have a crack at singing and playing rhythm guitar. And he's like, oh, I'll talk to the other guys. The bass player, Chris, had been the bass player in the band that we were all in 81. He wasn't keen on trying me out. And the drummer was Martin Gilks, who had been in Mighty Lemon Drops. But they auditioned me because Mark's a nice guy. And we kicked a few ideas around that I'd had. Like, I walked in there and Malcolm, the bass player, hadn't written anything. So I'm like, well, what are we going to do? I've got a couple of songs. Do you want to do those? And so showed him those bits. And Martin Gilks was like, yeah, he's good. I'd like to work with that guy. Malcolm was like, actually, you're a lot better than I thought. Just don't be a cunt, Milo, and make me sack you again.
Don't be a cunt. Yeah.
That's a fair enough condition, though, isn't it? That's fair.
It really is. I mean, you can't argue with the man.
You can't. Simple as that. Yeah.
And then the
But did you
bass player
stick to it?
didn't like. No, no, I soon repaired into my old miserable ways. And then but the bass player didn't like it, what I was doing, so he said he wouldn't come to any more rehearsals if I was there. Fair enough. And then oddly, he'd been in a band from Coventry called Major Five, and they toured with the Pogues. They'd been the support band for the Pogues. And so Chris had to have like a roadie, a bass tech. And his bass tech was Rob the Bass Thing Jones, who had moved to London, suddenly turned up back in Stourbridge looking to be in a band. And so Malk said, would you mind? So we used to call him Punky Rob then. Would you mind if Punky Rob auditioned? And I'm like, no, not at all. So we actually had a songwriting session, like with acoustic guitars in my flat first before he came to rehearsals. And that was great. You know, he's a very musical guy. And then, yeah, I think so. That whole period took about 3 weeks, I think, because I've got in my diaries, I've got, oh, hang on, my mom's calling.
Oh,
Let me just, how do I, Mom, I'm just on another call. I'll call you back. All right, ta-ra. Bye.
Wow. Shout out to your mum.
In the middle of the filming for what do you call it? The video that we made all those years. Yeah. Anyway, I'm pressing buttons now. Don't know what I'm doing.
You're all right.
You've gone ever so small.
You're all
anyway,
loud and
so
clear,
yeah,
so
I've got in a diary the very first rehearsal of Rob joining, and then 2 weeks later we do our first gig. So there'd also been two rehearsals with Richard from Pot Will Eat Itself. Had stood in just to help us write. He was never going to join. So yeah, Punky Rob joined us, started gigging March the 19th. I remember the date, March the 19th, 1986. By September, we released a 4-track EP. By the following June, we signed to Polygram Publishing. They financed bit studio time, so we released Unbearable in the summer of 87. So we've only been together a year, more or less. And then December 87, signed to Polydor after touring with Big Country. We were the support for Big Country. Nice UK tour of theirs. So it happened really fast.
Yeah.
And we were having a good time. And we wrote The Eight-Legged Groove Machine during that period. I guess by 90% of it was written by the time we signed to Polydor in end of 87. So yeah, that was the start of it. That's the beginning.
Yeah.
Amazing.
What sort of bands were you into at the time, around the time when you were forming the band?
Well, how about back in 81, even before that, like when you were 15 in 81, who were you listening to?
Before I met all the guys from Stourbridge, I was pretty much on a solid diet of Bob Dylan.
Right.
Oh, the old punk stuff of the late 70s that me and my brother were into, all the obvious bands. And then Dylan was my thing. And then a friend of mine, by the time I was in From Eden with the Stourbridge gang, a friend of mine had introduced me to the Waterboys. So it wasn't too far of a step to go from Dylan to the Waterboys. There's a big Dylan influence, obviously, with Mike Scott in those early days. So by the time Mal let me try out to be a singer, it was very, in my head, I could hear Mike Scott from the Waterboys. Obviously, nobody else could hear that. So I was pretty much on a staple diet of the Waterboys. And then I was not, like, I remember living at the flat with Clint when the Wonderstuff started, and like favorite records that I would play would be Sally McLennan by the Pogues, and She Was, Talking Heads, Waterboys. I wasn't really, but I wouldn't go and get that Pogues album, or I wouldn't go and get that Talking Heads album. I just like singles. Other than the Dylan and Waterboy stuff. Then a good mate of Clint's introduced me to Joni Mitchell, Leonard Cohen, which lyrically were huge influences on me. And then Malk was into all the late 70s punk stuff, and had sort of by the mid 80s was into like the Long Riders. I suppose American sort of West Coast bands. Jilksy was just coming out of his Genesis period, but that's fine for a drummer. And was really into REM. I think it was Martin Jilks that introduced me to REM, whose albums I did go and buy. And Rob Jones was into anything from the Pogues, and then things like Napalm Death, Bomb Disneyland, harder stuff. He wanted our stuff to be harder, and I suppose I wanted it to be under 3-minute pop songs with pop song choruses, which I guess is what we did. I sort of won that argument, I guess. But Bob was very melodic, so a lot of the time. Oh, and I guess we all loved the Smiths. Yeah, that would be across the four of us. Loved the Smiths, and that was again lyrical and vocal arrangement inspiration for me. And then we all loved Psychedelic Furs and the Bonnie Men, Bauhaus, and
nice mix.
Yeah. Nice mix. That's interesting. How did you see like the Wonderstuff fitting into the wider music scene then that was going on? Like you thought that the Smiths and like all the Bauhaus stuff. Did you see yourself as part of that?
No, we didn't have such lofty ideas. I mean, the dream, I suppose, would to get your independently produced single played by John Peel or Janice Long, which happened. Then and then the real dream would be get a session with either of those DJs, which Pot Will Eat Itself had done. So we were always in the company of Pot Will Eat Itself then. So really we were just following what they were doing. Those would be our ambitions. What have the Poppies just done? And Pot Will Eat Itself were always amazing with us. Like, you should try and talk to somebody at Sounds Melody Maker or Enemy. Here's the numbers of the people we've spoken to. So without Pot Will Eat Itself, it would have been a much longer slog for us.
Yeah, that's always helpful, isn't it?
That sounds like a really kind of supportive, close-knit kind of scene. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was. And then by end of 89, maybe early 90, I think it was Clint that first met the lads from Neds Atomic Dustbin and gave them gigs, which is probably where the first time I saw Neds. And then we asked Neds to do gigs with us in 90. So yeah, it was just very much, pass it on, help out whoever you can, as long as the band's good, I mean,
absolutely.
There were plenty of friends from sort of Birmingham bands that didn't really like, but they were mates. But you didn't go offering them gigs because you're like, well, no, get better.
What did you think of the old Grebo tag that went along with that scene? Was that?
Didn't care. That seemed to stick to Pot Will Eat Itself more than it did us. But by their debut album, they had 2 songs with the word Grebo in it. So they kind of did it to themselves. And as far as we were concerned, it didn't care any attention. If that would probably be Terry Staunton and James Brown at Sounds and Enemy, respectively. That like to use that tag, and then they would throw Gay Bikers into it, Crazy Head into it, and
that's right.
And that was, that all helped. There were similarities between the bands, and we definitely picked up those kids that were out on their thumbs on the motorways or getting the milk train home at, late at night, following our kind of bands around. And you see, before that, what we didn't like was the smaller bands that were getting major record deals. And I have no thoughts on this now, but we were kind of anti it at the time. But you had so Simple Minds had been massive. And then somebody that was influenced by Simple Minds that didn't do as well as them, but you could hear the influence, they would be then Jericho. And then you would hear just more, just bands with that kind of influence. Whereas Via Pot Will Eat Itself had gone back to the Buzzcocks, those kind of influences. The early 80s had some great stuff going on, but there was also a lot of 5-piece guitar bands with synthesizers, which was like a no-no for us. And so stripping it back to new wave type of, 2.5-minute pop songs. And then by being tagged with Grebo, it helped that it was a scene, and it changed things, I guess. Unluckily for bands, 5-piece bands with single frontmen and guys with keyboards fucking piled up, and a collection of Simple Minds records.
Yeah. I mean, that scene that you're describing, what's your take on the kind of the t-shirt band kind of thing as well? You and Neds and Carter were kind of known for selling shitloads of mostly long sleeve t-shirts, creating kind of tribes. Was that like intentional branding, or I mean, what?
It was purely to make money. Because I suppose Poppies had done it first. A shirt that wouldn't, it would just have Gulp written on it, or something like that,
right.
in cartoon bubbles. It didn't necessarily say the name of the band. We saw how it basically paid for the diesel for the van that you were in. And then our manager was like, yeah, we'll do that. But we just put the name of the band on it, or put the little bit of the artwork from Unbearable on it. Neds were very creative with that. And Mega City 4, and as you say, Carter. But it was just putting diesel in the van. None of us were, young marketing men. It was like, how do we make money to get to these gigs?
But do you think it did help to create that subculture?
Of course it did, yeah. Undoubtedly. I mean, when I had bands that I'd gone to see, prior to being in the Wonderstuff, so I'd go and see the Bunnymen if ever they came to town, the Furs, Waterboys. I might buy a program but I don't remember T-shirts. Certainly not when I was much younger and going to see the Jam and bands like that. You get the program, but there weren't any shirts. The only thing I can remember from being like a young fan would be Tom Robinson Band put the stencil in their first album, so you could make your own shirts.
I've got it on the shelf behind me. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, with the stencil intact. Yeah. That's interesting. And how else were you connecting with fans? If there was no social media back then, were you writing to fans and stuff, answering letters and that?
Did occasionally, yeah, because we had an address on the back of the first 2 indie singles. Yeah, I would do that. I would sit and handwrite letters back and say thanks. Not a great deal, certainly not every one, because I think that the little line on our sleeve said, write something interesting to the Wonderstuff at, so people would just put something interesting and stick that in the post. Yeah, got sick of that.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the sound, stripping it back to kind of punky kind of 3-minute songs and stuff, but the sound did kind of gradually change. Was that intentional, or was it just whatever the song demanded? If it needed an accordion, then you'd bring in an accordion. If it needed a violin, then how did that process happen?
Well, first and foremost, after 8-Legged Groove Machine, we didn't want to make 8-Legged Groove Machine 2.
Sure.
It was that simple. Waterboys had released Fisherman's Blues in '88. So when we were touring 8-Legged Groove Machine, I just had headphones on all the time, constantly listening to Fisherman's Blues. Again, that took me back to being into Dylan's Desire, which has got Scarlett, I can't remember her surname, playing violin all over like Hurricane and that. So okay, that connects with. And then I'd started to say to Malk, it was actually something my dad said to me, was why don't you, for this next album, why don't you write some songs that have got some sort of solo in it, so you can take a breath, because there's just no gaps in the 8-Legged Groove Machine. It's just bang bang bang, vocal. So I'd said that to Malk, and Malk was like, Malk's a fucking great guitarist, and he's like, I hate guitar solos, I don't want to do that. That's going back to the pompousness of those 5-piece keyboard bands.
Yeah.
Malk's like, no. You might get like 2 bars out of him where he'll throw a riff in, because that's what Steve Diggle would have done, but he wouldn't do a solo. So I'd written with Malk, I'd written Cartoon Boyfriend, and I said, come on, let's try and get a solo spot, and he did something nice. And then I'm like, I also want a violin in this. So we got Martin Bell to come down as a session musician and say, can you put a solo here? And it was kind of like a toss up between the guitar solo or the violin solo. And again, I love the violin solo. Malk didn't care a toss about ditching the guitar solo. So yeah, it was very intentional not to remake Eight-Legged Groove Machine. I don't think we'd know how anyway. Our lives had changed so much. You know, everything. That time of writing Eight-Legged Groove Machine, we were still on the bus going to rehearsals in the rain. For the first part of it, me, Martin, and Malk still had jobs. And
really?
then by the time
what did you do? Can I ask?
I was a litter picker at the NEC. And
I've done a bit of litter picking in my time, to be fair.
It's amazing what you find. I found 70 quid in an envelope.
It's quite a satisfying job.
Yeah. Yeah, 70 quid cash in an envelope with and I needed to see the Water Boys, but they were supporting U2, and there was no way I was giving money to U2 to be able to see the Water Boys. And then so I found this 70 quid, I split it with the guy I was with. And then I'm like, right, I can buy U2 tickets now to go and see U2. And so I saw the Water Boys, who were phenomenal. And then 25 minutes later, U2 came on, who were laughable. So I left.
Did you watch? Did you leave through the midway through the U2 set, or did you?
Midway through the first song, they opened with 11 o'clock TikTok, which I just thought was infantile. Having just seen a Waterboy set with the horns and the keyboards, and just was phenomenal.
That's great. And then, so you saw them and then fucked off. That's brilliant.
And then I'd got a bit of time for U2 because I like Pride in the Name of Love, which I think that was the tour that they were doing. I thought that was a good track, but I'd never heard 11 o'clock TikTok, and honestly, I just thought it was, as I say, infantile. So much to my then girlfriend's disappointment, like, can't, we're off. So what had happened between Eight-Legged Groove Machine? We toured Europe. Went out, did a couple of things in America, like radio station things. I don't think then we toured the Eight-Legged Groove Machine in America, and that's where our lives changed forever. And at that point, there's no way we could have written another Eight-Legged Groove Machine. The world just opened up to us. All of our lives completely changed. We got home from that tour, split up with the girlfriends that we'd been living with, or moved into a flat in London, like the Monkeys, and we're writing every day. So life had just changed completely.
So what was the tipping point? What was the tipping point that made you think, okay, we're going to take this seriously now?
I suppose signing to Polydor, really, and I never cared about our chart positions. It was the last single from Eight-Legged, It's Your Money and After Baby, that broke the 40, which is, of course, what the record company wanted. I didn't care. And It's Your Money, I should add, only got to number 40, but Polydor were happy with that. I think Disco King maybe broke the top 30, which was a single between albums, which really should have been on the Eight-Legged Groove Machine, but we didn't write it until it was after. I took more pleasure in Pop Will Eat Itself's chart positions. I'd be thrilled, when they got in the charts, and I found it slightly embarrassing, and particularly when we got invited to go on Top of the Pop. So I had absolutely no interest of that whatsoever.
We love
we love Top of the Pops. Why? What was the first time you went there? What was the song the first time you went there? Because you played it a few times, right?
Yeah, I think we did 7 times.
7?
Always always under protest. It was Don't Let Me Down Gently. Yeah, Don't Let Me. So that was the first single from Hop, which definitely went in. I can't remember the number, but it went in top 30. And I just felt like an absolute fool
Is this like some like indie guilt thing going on? Why?
It's just so horrible. The audience members are little kids that have
Mm.
no interest in the type of thing that we're doing. They're herded around without even a bottle of water each, treated like
Oh,
shit.
really?
All
Fair enough.
all the sort of professional directors and producers at Top of the Pops were really unfriendly. Do this, do that. You will do this. You will do that.
Right. Yeah.
It was just horrible. And worst of all, you had to mime. And I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
learn to play an
that.
instrument, didn't work on trying to be a passable vocalist, to stand there like a fucking pillock miming, you know.
Yeah, I think we just loved it because we got to see all the bands that we loved, like, and we were glad that everyone else got to see them. But yeah, from that point of view, then obviously that's
Much to my surprise, you know, by then I was friends with the journalists that took an interest in us at, say, NME. They loved it. They, and you know, I knew Marianne Hobbs by then. And you know, then we got married and spent a few years together, and she would tell me about that morning after your first Top of the Pops, like the NME office was just so excited. It was like the only one that had really come out of the indie scene, I think at that point, was Primitives with Crash. Everything else was what you imagine Top of the Pops was in the early 80s.
Right. Do you remember who else was on with you that first time? What other?
No.
I was going to say bands, but not bands, artists. Yeah.
No memory of it at all. Just like, get me out of here. I feel unclean.
Yeah.
But that enemy excitement, that's what we felt as viewers, as we were like indie kids sitting at home. It's the only place to see the bands that, you know, our bands. It was the only chance, you know. So.
Yeah, we just saw the end product, I guess.
Yeah, it was the same for me when I was little. You know, when Public Image Limited would be on Top of the Pops. The Jam would be on Top of the Pops. Bauhaus are on Top of the Pops. Yeah, and I loved that. But I preferred watching Old Grey Whistle Test to actually hear what all of those bands actually sounded like when they played live. That was far more interesting to me.
Yeah. I was watching the Size of a Cow performance on Top of the Pops a few days ago, and you didn't even pretend to hold a microphone or anything like that.
That's the way you got to do it, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't remember that.
That's great. It's great.
I remember making the video for it, which was a good laugh, but I don't remember the Top of the Pops version of it.
Yeah.
Well, can we talk about Size of a Cow? Because like you say, you've been building up momentum, you've been having chart hits, you're going higher and higher, but that was like the big breakthrough, right? I mean, did you set out to write a hit?
No, I can still remember how it was meant to sound. I was walking. We lived at Great Portland Street in a flat there. The whole band did, and we'd had a parcel delivery card come through to go, you weren't in. So I walked to the Royal Mail at Euston, picked up the parcel, and then so it's a little under a mile. And then walking back, and I had this big, don't you think it's funny? Don't know what it seems. And I pretty much had the whole song sketched out in my head. But the bit where it later went sort of middle age, that was meant to be a sort of J Mascis, Dinosaur Jr. absolute wig out bit.
Right.
So there was this sort of like a pop element, Oh yeah, I did have the piano idea because I'd always wanted to write something that took influence from a girl called Johnny by the Waterboys, which starts with that do 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 do. So I got into the flat, and there was only Malk in the flat, and he starts to say something like, "Hello, boy, do you want a cup of tea?" And I'm like, "Shut up, shut up, shut up! Where's the port studio? Where's the port studio?" And then a friend of mine still got the tape where I just hit play and record and go, "This is a piano," and then got most of the vocals down, then grabbed a guitar, got the chords. Matt was going, "Where have you got all that from?" And I'm like, "Just walking along Euston Road." He's like, "Well, it sounds good." But so it was, so there was no harm in doing pop because the Cure had done it so brilliantly. That was another band we all loved. The Cure could do, moody. They could do, atmospheric, beautiful. But they didn't mind doing Why Can't I Be You, which was out and out pop, or Love Cats, which was perhaps better than out and out pop. But so we had no problem with pop. And then by the time we got into, so we demoed it with Pat Collier, who produced the first 2 albums. And then by the time we did the sessions for real with Mick Glossop, he was like, okay, let's go to town on this. And so, loved XTC, loved Squeeze, loved Madness. And it was like, okay, let's mine all of them. Mick Glossop was like an encyclopedia of Beatles production. And so it was like, let's look at every bar of this track and wring every bit of classic British pop out of it. And it was just really, it was good fun. We learned a lot. Then when Polydor heard it, they said, yeah, well done. Just carry on with the rest of the album. And I'm like, no, release this as a single now. Like, get it out as a single. This is going to do well. And they were like, well, for a start, it's not a single. We're like, what the fuck do you mean? It's not a single. And it was great. It was really, it was sound advice, really, because so the man that was saying this to us was A&R man called Graham Carpenter. And he said, if you release this, it will change everything, the perception that everyone's got of the band. Yeah, I don't doubt it'll be a hit, but is that what you want? You're a rock band. Is it, and I'm like, I'd just like kind of a hit, really, get it out there. So under pressure from us, they did, and they released it before the rest of the album was finished, and it was a hit, and radio loved it, and and I don't regret it for a minute. But Graham Carpenter was absolutely right that it did change. So the guys, the people that were into Eight-Legged and Hop, didn't like it when we played it live, and I still hear from them now. They're fat and bald now, but they're like, "Oh, you're not going to do Size of a Cow, are you?" And like, there's a great deal of our audience that do enjoy it. I just go to the bar when you hear the piano.
Yeah. So that's interesting. There was a backlash from that. Did it bring in new audience as well to the gig?
Shitloads. Yeah, it was by the time we were out doing Never Loved Elvis, it was touring that album. It was an entirely different audience. We did see, Bob Jones wasn't on it, but I think because we've been on Top of the Pops with Don't Let Me Down, that was Bob. Golden Green, the video was shown to it. See, we'd picked up a lot of youngsters then, and I remember Bob not liking that. He didn't like seeing kids on the barrier with big daft lads in DMs rolling around on their heads. It wasn't that he didn't like the kids; he didn't want them to get hurt.
Right.
So that had happened. So he left in December '89. So whatever the Hope tour, it had changed by then, but it changed drastically by Size of a Cow, and I think not just driven by the song itself, but also driven by how silly the video was. It was kind of kids friendly, wasn't it?
Yeah. But the whole album did well as well, right? It's do you know the first cassette player I bought using the Christmas tips money I got from my paper round. The first cassette I bought was Never Loved Elvis when I was 14 or 15. When I was those young kids that you're talking about, right? And I was brought in by that sound, and it totally worked. So.
No complaints, absolutely no complaints.
I think also probably lazily back in the day you got lumped in with the Levelers now and again just because you both had violins in the band. You know what I mean? It was a bit of a lazy sort of.
I don't mind that. I love all the guys from the Levelers. They're a superb body of men, and they got some great tunes on them. We've toured with them in probably 10 years ago now, maybe a little bit more, but we actually toured the UK with them, and that was great. I don't see the similarity in the songwriting because Mark's got a lot to say, and Jeremy's got a lot to say that it's socio-political things to say. I don't.
Yeah.
And but I also know loads of people that would just go, I don't listen to lyrics. As far as I'm concerned, you're exactly the same. But I think the intent of the two bands couldn't be more different.
No, I think it was literally that you both had a violin. That's
I think
pretty
it is
much
simply that. And I
link.
guess we head for choruses. Most of our songs,
Yeah.
Right.
we're heading for the chorus. And I think that's probably the
Yeah.
same as
Yeah.
the Levelers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you really not a fan of Elvis?
Not at the
Well,
time. No, I wasn't. And
Fair.
it wasn't. It really wasn't the person or the talent. It was how bizarre he became.
Right.
How he sort of shat on his own. He was a genius when he started, and like, how do you become that thing that he'd become by the mid-70s? It was, so obviously now we all know why. It was bad management, it was bad prescription drugs, it was I watched it. Was it a Baz Luhrmann film, that most recent one?
The Elvis one, yeah.
I loved it, and I loved the music, and I ended up just feeling really sorry for him. Although he's slightly questionable, but as a person by the 70s. But at the time, it was meant to be more of a comment of like anti-showbiz and and a reaction against some of the things that we discovered in America that we didn't like.
I wanted to ask about that. So, I mean, you did pretty well in America, right? And I was thinking, like, compared to other bands that were doing well, like Jesus Jones and stuff in the US, you were a bit more kind of quintessentially English to your sound. Did that work in your favor?
I mean, mostly we did support tours. So we supported the Mission, who were much bigger than us, playing much bigger venues than we could. Then we supported Susie and the Banshees. So it's kind of like two goth connected bands, I suppose, but did long tours with both of those bands, like 7 or 8 weeks.
How was that?
And it's great. Well, the Mission were our friends, so the Banshees was a little bit different. Became friends with them all after. I think they were under a lot of pressure at the time and weren't very happy, so we didn't really see much of them other than Budgie. Their drummer was in and out of our dressing room and real friendly, but the rest of them were a little bit standoffish. But I still meet people and hear from people now that, like, I first saw you with with Susie and the Banshees or the Mission, and that's and I can't think, not that mismatch with the Mission, but I think we were quite mismatched with the Banshees. But it worked. And then we probably did 2 or 3 headline tours, and we had Milltown Brothers on a tour with us in the States. Oh, nice. Picked up a band in Boston to tour with us on another tour called Public Works. Yeah, enjoyed it. It was good. And radio liked us, and for the most part, Polygram, which was the label out there, were reasonably supportive.
Yeah. Are the crowds different out there? Were they different out there to the ones over here? Like everyone says,
really
it's subdued.
They're completely over the top. It's
right.
It's like woo, yeah, like you're like, and I'm like, we haven't fucking played a song yet. Calm down. And they didn't really know whether that was meant in fun or whether I was serious. I actually was serious. So that took quite a long time to get used to. Yeah.
Is it true? I read this the other day. Like in America, like buying merch, it's like just something that everyone does at every gig. Like they just sort of queue up at the end, and no one goes away without buying a CD or a bit of merch. I don't know if it's just bullshit that I just read somewhere. But...
No, I wouldn't say it was that much different. I mean, it's very different in Tokyo.
Oh yeah,
is it
the way it's
all
done
about the merch?
Yeah, incredible. Love the way they do it in Tokyo. Yeah, you sort of you do like a 90-minute gig, and rather than buying merch, they're given a ticket. This was
it depends on the venue, but it depends. Yeah.
Okay. And then the ticket has a number, so that puts them at a certain place in a queue. So they do all the merch buying after, and then that's in like a large bar area of the venue that we played. And so they're constantly in this queue. They pick up their stuff. They've also bought loads, like record sleeves with them. And then in this queue, they come and meet the band. And that was brilliant. Absolutely love that.
Yeah, it's a good way of doing it, right?
Yeah. Well, the Japanese are very good at organizing things.
They are
indeed. They are indeed.
If the Grebo kids were not happy with Size of a Cow, how did Dizzy go down with the indie kids?
Well, obviously even worse.
Yeah.
Well, again, it picked up a new audience, didn't it?
Yeah.
Because I suppose Vic and Bob were just so everywhere, and particularly,
but they were so good though. They were great.
Yeah. So if you were a student at that time and enjoyed your cheap beers in the students' union, I mean, I should imagine things like that time. Size of a Cow, Dizzy were never off the DJ's decks, and
whose idea was it?
Jim's, Vic's,
right.
Yeah.
So I'd asked them a favor. We did rather self-indulgently did a football stadium gig in Walsall in '91 when Never Loved Elvis came out, and I bumped into Vic and Bob for the first time and just cheekily said to them, "Would you host our festival day?" So we had like Swerve Driver, New Fast Automatic Daffodils, my Canadian friends, Spirit of the West. Were Kingmaker on it? Can't remember. Anyway, but we wanted the festival to have a host, and I asked Vic and Bob, and he immediately just said yeah, and gave him the address and the time to be there. And amazingly, they turned up. And the week after that, he phoned me and just said, "Will you be my band for my next single?" Because he'd done Abide With Me.
That's right.
His first single. So we had a meeting in the pub, and he just said,
I took a single of that as well.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I went for the CD single of Abide With Me.
Sure.
And then he said, if you're my band, and everything we did was like a front cover of The Enemy at that time. He's going, this would be a #1 single. He was very excited about having a #1 single. So then he said, these are the 3 songs you should learn. So it was Ring of Fire, Damnation Anyway by Hawkwind, and Dizzy. And I'd never heard Dizzy. So we went off to rehearsals and we learned all 3 and invited him down. And we'd learned the Johnny Cash Ring of Fire. But he wanted the Tom Jones version of Ring of Fire, which none of us have heard. So it's like, he's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? That's not Ring of Fire. And like, it is. It's the version we know. Well, that's no good. And then we did a bit of Damnation Alleyway, and he was like, yeah, I like that. Now do Dizzy. And we did Dizzy, and he goes, well, that's obviously it. And we're like, okay, fine.
There you go.
So I'd never heard it. I don't know how I missed that. And then we just spent 4 or 5 days in the studio with the Never Loved Elvis producer Mick Glossop, and did Dizzy. And then it was out really, really quickly. It just seemed like, we did that, and then it was like the next week going to do a video for it, and then we're on Top of the Pops. Again.
And it's #1.
And then it's #1. Yeah. 2 weeks.
There you go.
Amazing.
Yeah,
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. So we kind of finished the band in '94. It seemed you were still riding high at that point. What was the thinking behind that decision?
Sick of the sight of each other.
Yeah. Happens.
You just spent all of your time together. Everyone was married by then. Everyone but me and Paul Clifford had got kids. No, Malk hadn't got his kids by then, but everyone was married, and we should have took a year off, perhaps. Which is what, when we told Polydor, I told the band I was leaving, I'm like, I'm done with this. I don't need to do this anymore. So it took me 8 years to be the cunt that Malk predicted.
That's not bad, is it?
No, but that's not cuntiness. That's just being honest, right, about the situation.
It's such we've spoken to a few bands. It's such an intense environment in it, touring and stuff. So it's gonna, you know, it can't.
Yeah, so that was life had changed again, you know. So we'd gone from being the kids that were all into the band, then being the band that had been to America, then changing everything in our lives, then to then seeking a bit of quiet and comfort and just we did well commercially with that fourth album, but I didn't feel particularly relevant because, of course, the new bands that became Britpop were coming along,
right?
And we'd listen to all of that. You know, we'd buy all of that, and we had our own studio, and we'd sit and listen to them. So I remember hearing for the first time Suede.
Yeah.
When we'd been out touring America, There's No Other Way by Blur was like every dance floor filler at the clubs we were playing. I think maybe Weirdo, Charlatans was doing really well in America then as well. So it had changed. And also we were living in grunge, and none of grunge appealed to me. It had no wit. It was full of macho, moaning dullards as far as I was concerned.
Even Nirvana?
Yeah.
Really?
Saw them 5 times.
Remove your Kurt photo, Neil.
Saw them play 5 times. Did 5 festivals with them. So we got really friendly with Novoselic and Grohl, and never saw much of Cobain. Well, they were terrible. They were absolutely terrible.
Oh, don't tell me this, man. Really?
We would stand there. My sound man and I, he's a record producer, still with us, Simon F. and me. And we would stand watching them and go, well, the drummer's great and the bass, Chris, is great. What's the singer's problem? Why does he try? Like, this is the 5th time we've seen him. Every single time. What's his problem? Why is he trying to fuck his band up? It's just, you know, there were great 3-piece rock bands, you know, Dinosaur Jr., Buffalo Tom. They were brilliant live. And then our favourites would be, our favourites would be of that time, Jane's Addiction, Faith No More, who was stunning musicians. You know, they would have off nights.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he's amazing. And then you've got Nirvana that's blowing up. And I remember Mary Ann gave me the album on a cassette as a pre-release. I don't know if she reviewed it, but there was a cassette going around. She goes, we were off to Australia, and she said, you should listen to this. And I said, I've fucking seen them live. They're terrible. I said, I ain't listening to that. And then she said, oh, you're a miserable bastard. It's going to blow up. And then we're in Australia. So I got to Fremantle in Australia, opened my luggage, and she'd put the tape in my luggage.
Yeah.
So I told the rest of the band, and we're in a people carrier, and I just asked the driver, so put this on. And we were like, well, that's not what they're like live. That's all right. But it is essentially the first Stiff Little Fingers album. That was the Wonderstuff's review of it. It's like, I've got this. Stiff Little Fingers did it in 78. I've already got it. And then, of course, Mary Ann was absolutely right. It totally blew up. And they were always awful live, even after they blew up.
There you go.
There you go.
So, what bothered me about the whole grunge thing? See, Jane's Addiction had wit. Faith No More had wit in fucking... every pore, you know, they were a serious rock and roll band. So
there was no fun in the grunge scene, that's for sure.
It was. Okay. So the over earnestness, like that Eddie Vedder kind of moany earnest. Yeah, okay, I get that.
Awful. It was 1975 again. It was heavy metal and
right.
I just thought it was awful. And then so Britpop comes along.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you had the obvious bands that had got wit. I always saw the wit in Oasis. Obviously, Blur had got a great sense of humor. Pulp, brilliant. They're getting their moment. They've been working at it for years. And it was clever, but it wasn't anything I was interested in following in terms of our writing. And so just felt a bit, well... I think, and Construction was a tough one to write because I'd written pretty much everything for Never Loved Elvis, but it just came. It wasn't difficult. And when it came to Construction, I'm like, shit, I've got to write 20 more songs. I got nothing. I got nothing in me. I got nothing I want to write about. So I said to the rest of the band, all right, we got to go back to how we used to be. Malk, you got to start coming up with ideas. And we'd sort of outgrown each other, really. We didn't know what we wanted to be. Now, I mean, last year we toured all the songs from Construction for the Modern Idiot, and I think they're great. I wasn't very confident with them at the time. Even at the point we put the album out, I'm like, I'm not confident in this. I don't know what it is. I don't know where it fits. But not feeling confident and being sick of the sight of each other was like, and then so it was just time to take a break, which is what Polydor said. Just take a year off. They're like, we've done it with Weller, we've done it with Robert Smith. Take a year off. Don't write anything. Don't demo anything. Don't see each other. And then if we decide on this date is the date where we all go our separate ways, call us in a year. And see what you want to do. And I was like, no, I won't be able to enjoy that year if I know I've got to go back to this. So we shit canned it, which in hindsight was a mistake.
Okay.
But then if I hadn't have done that, then I wouldn't have made the Vent 414 record.
Yeah. I mean, how soon after that did that come together? It seemed to be quite soon.
I did almost straight away, really. Yeah, because Polydor didn't drop me. And they were like, we're not going to give you your next advance, so because it's not going to be the Wonderstuff, but we'll give you some money, which I spent it all on a recording system, which was ADATs then. It was before computers, and ADATs, a nice mixing desk and monitors and stuff. And I just started writing the stuff 4 or 5 tunes that became the first few things we did for Vent. But I took the job at MTV, so I was presenting 120 minutes.
That's right. Yeah. How did that come about? Yeah.
Well, I'd been on there a lot. They were very supportive of the Construction album, and I'd got to, and I lived like 200 yards away from there, so they would call me and just go, "Would you run round right now? Ray Cokes wants you on his live tea time show," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be there in a minute." And then so I got to know some producers. Paul King had decided he was going to move to VH1, so they needed a 120 presenter, and Catalina De Baca just said, "Do you want a screen test for it?" And I said no. And then once I'd said no, I had like butterflies in my stomach, like feeling nervous about it. And I'm like, oh, hang on a minute. I like this. I this. I haven't felt nervous about anything in years. All right, this is good. This is good. So I phoned it back and I said, put me on that list. I'll screen test. And they gave it me. But it was only like 2 days a week that I was actually, but 1.5 days a week, really. I was having anything to do with MTV. So I was using this recording equipment at home, and then my friend Tank, who managed Neds Atomic Dustbin, had said, "What are you doing musically? Because I've heard that Morgan Nichols from Senseless Things is leaving to look to do something else." And I'd never heard Morgan play at that point. And I'm like, what is he? So, yeah.
You're in for a treat.
Yeah. So Tank took me to see him at the Powerhouse, the old Pied Bull in Islington. And I'm like, what the fuck is he doing? How can anyone do that? Yeah. And then so I had a little chat with Morgan. I'm like, I've got a couple of tunes written in. And he was in Richmond. I was in Camden. But I would post the cassettes to him. And then he'd post them back, and there was bass on them. And I'm like, this is insane. And then I was on a tube. It was quite an empty tube, and wherever it pulled up, Pete Howard from Eat, the drummer, who I'd been terrified of. I mean, we got along. We'd never fallen out because we toured with Eat, but he seemed like a very, alpha male. And I'd say him and Jilks got on really well, but I'd never really spoke to Pete. And he got on the tube and just said, all right, Miles, have I heard right? Are you forming a band with Morgan Nichols? Because if you have, I have to be the drummer. Nice. And I'm like, you drum with me? And he's like, yeah, let me know what's going on. And so we did all that really quickly, And so it was great. And we're currently working on another one at the minute. I was just sitting here writing lyrics to one of the tracks today. So this time next year, we'll have a Vent album,
Oh, brilliant.
Wow. 27 years in the making.
I was going to say,
There we go.
Amazing. Yeah.
It was great getting back in the studio, because it's a producer friend of mine called Matt Terry. He's been on at me for a few years going, please let me produce a Vent album. And I'm like, look, I ain't making any more albums. I'm not spending money on making records. They don't sell anymore. You can't get your money back. I just, there's nothing I want to write. And he's like, God, you're a miserable bastard. And he's like, you're still relatively young. Let's do it. Let's do it. And I'm like, no, I'm not spending money or time on this. And he owns his own studio. So he said, what about I find a few days? It's a lovely residential studio near Stratford-upon-Avon. And he said, the three of you come in and just start jamming and we'll know. We will know whether there's a record. And the first day we wrote 6 songs, and the next morning we wrote a 7th. And it was ridiculous because I looked at Morgan and Pete when we sat, headphones on, got our own mixing channels and all this in the beautiful chapel. This was only last month, and I said, well, all right, then we're plugged in. We can hear each other. What do you want to do? Do you want to do any of the old ones? And Morgan just said, I don't know any of them. So I said, all right, then Morgan start playing. Yeah, Morgan start playing, Pete join in, and I'll do something on top. And yeah, in a day, 6 tracks. So
incredible.
Amazing.
Great.
It does sound fucking, and it just sounded like us straight away.
Yeah.
Like, this is
That's good. Look forward to that.
What's going on? Yeah.
Brilliant. All right. Well, we kept you a really long time. Neil, do you want to ask our always?
Yeah, we asked this question to all our guests. If you could have been in any other band at that time, sort of late 80s, early 90s, who would it have been and why?
The Cult. I would have liked to have been the rhythm guitarist in the Cult. So Billy Duffy did a couple of months in the early Vent 414. We recorded radio sessions with Billy playing with us because they'd put the Cult on hold for a while. Ian Asprey was doing the Holy Barbarians. Yeah. And Billy was just knocking around London, saw him in a rehearsal studio where we were starting Vent. And he was like, can I just come in, sit in, just play some riffs? I'm like, I fucking love that. You know, it wasn't really he was an acquaintance really, but he was my guitar god, and I'm just like, he's still my favorite British guitarist of that sort of era, and if not all eras. And so it didn't work out. Morgan and Pete wanted it to be a 3-piece, and Billy had other ideas of what he wanted to do with the tune, so we went back to being a 3-piece. But when we had okay, Bill, thank you. I said, you will at some point reform the Cult. I know you will. I said, please give me a ring and let me be the guy at the back in a cowboy hat that's just backing you up. And he was like, all right, you're on, mate. And still never. Could happen. Could still happen.
Could happen. Yeah.
Right?
Well, I saw them last summer when we were hanging out, and they don't have a second guitarist anymore. They have a keyboard player instead. There we go. So yeah. But, I think rhythm guitarist in the Cult.
That's great. Answer. That's a great answer. Yeah.
Where can people find out what you're up to these days? Where's the best?
Well, what are you up to? Before that, what is coming up?
What are you up?
So Vent 414's in the works. What else?
Yeah, we'll be on Vent for the rest of the year. Really, we want to get the record finished by December, which is when I start rehearsing with the Wonderstuff, and then the Wonderstuff are going to tour Hop. Which will be its 35th anniversary in December. That's just the UK.
So you do like playing the whole album?
Yeah, but we're going to do a set before it of like probably 35, 40 minutes of tracks from the 5 albums we've done in the 21st century.
Right.
So, so it'd be like a 35, 40-minute set of stuff that people don't know. But that we have written and recorded in the last 24 years. Then we'll do Hop, and then we'll do like a 20-minute encore of stuff that's not on Hop. So you're unbearables and all of that.
Perfect.
That's December.
For everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And then between while that's going on, I do 2 or 3 acoustic gigs every month all around the UK.
Brilliant.
Yeah. What have you got a website that people can find you? Or
thewonderstuff.co.uk, or follow me on Twitter or Facebook, and I'm always letting everybody know. But the dates for the Hop tour are all there on the Wonderstuff website.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to stop the recording if that's all right. And
all right, thanks for having me.
Right, there we go. Miles Hunt from the Wonderstuff Vent 414. Dave, you weren't there. What do you think?
I really liked it. He was very charismatic guy, I thought.
He was. Yeah, he's obviously
But
done
the
a few of
thing-
those.
The people who weren't watching it but listening won't know, but he was smoking in it.
Yeah,
It really
looked
made
good,
me want
didn't
to
it?
smoke.
It did look good.
Oh.
I thought that.
When was the last time you had a bifter, Dave?
Oh, not that long ago. Usually if I go fishing once a year.
Yeah, he
I
claims
have one
he's
then.
given up, but he's always itching for one. If Danny ever mentions going fishing, Dave shits himself because he knows he can have a cigarette.
Neil, when was the last time you sparked up a cancer stick?
No, no, I'm done.
When was the last time?
14 years ago.
Right.
Yeah. You're even longer, right? Much longer.
Yeah, I reckon I'm like 25 years ago.
Dave's still caught in the nicotine
But I
trap.
quite like that. That's a good man. I like that. Just once a year. That's good. That's fine.
Yeah, but every day he's thinking about that once a year.
There is
Yeah.
more of a risk, I suppose, of falling off the wagon. You know, while I have this sort of boring, ordinary life, I doubt I'll ever be smoking again. But if suddenly
No.
I found myself...
Hey, what do you mean boring? You live in Berwick. There's
Come on.
there's
Well,
police
I don't-
chases through the village and mad
Street
dogs on the loose.
Moving greenhouses.
Yeah. I
Still
mean,
going on.
I don't find it boring, but obviously it is a boring life. Yeah, if I found myself suddenly in a rock band or something, or
That could happen.
homeless,
You'd be
probably
token away,
start
wouldn't you?
straight up again. Yeah.
Be bonging it up.
Would you be bonging it up, Dave? Ecstasy pipes.
What's an ecstasy five?
Ecstasy pipes is a brass eye reference.
Right.
Oh, yeah. That,
Chris
and
Moore.
cake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
the
drug
cake,
going
yeah.
around.
I mean, you'd be dead within 6 months, Dave. So you
Yeah.
couldn't be a rock star, could you?
Yeah.
No, definitely not.
It looks weird now, doesn't it, when people are smoking? It's weird how things have changed.
Certainly notice.
It's quite good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like it. It's his own house. He can do what the fuck he likes, can he?
That 80s, 90s bar I sometimes go to, that's a smoking bar. And it's literally everyone
Oh,
smokes.
you can still do it there, can you?
Yeah. It's up to the individual establishment can decide, basically. Yeah.
All right.
You might get lung cancer from going there.
Like Roy
Roy
Castle.
Castle. Not funny.
Not funny at all. No.
No.
Oh man, Record Breakers was fucking essential viewing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because he was passive smoking for his trumpet.
He
Yes.
really sucked it
Was
in, though,
like
didn't he, with that
Yeah.
trumpet? But then you blow, don't you? You don't suck a trumpet, do you?
You've got to suck before you can blow.
If you played a tuba back then,
Is that how
the
it
size of the
works?
instrument.
Yeah. Yeah.
It amplifies
yeah.
it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
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 So yeah, well, you've got one of those tuba things. They're massive, aren't they? You'd be
Yeah.
really fucking fucked after each gig.
Poor old Roy.
We touched on Shine On before. He said that he didn't have a very good gig, and that sort of got me thinking about, you never really know how good a gig the band are having, do you? On stage, you only can sort of like. There's obviously the legendary radio performance at Glastonbury in '97. They had a terrible gig on stage. They couldn't hear anything. It's famous.
Radiohead, did you say?
Yeah. What did I say?
You said radio.
Did I? All right.
Yeah.
So Radiohead, yeah, famously terrible stage sound on stage. They hated it, but it was a legendary gig. Maybe they sort of compensate in some way. So if they have a shit sound on stage, the gig's better for everyone out front. Don't know.
Yeah.
It's annoying if they're not enjoying it
Not for them.
because of the sound.
But like I say, you don't really, because we spoke to Roddy. He said he had a shit gig at Coachella with Faith No More. And again, I watched a bit of that and it looked great. So you just never really, it's annoying for them, I guess.
Yeah, but I guess bands worry about different things, right? If you're going to worry about the technical things, it's like Dave's favourite Bros, like in the Bros documentary. so many of the arguments are like, you know, him trying to get like the drum fill right and stuff like that. Literally, no one gives a fuck about whether he's getting the drum fill right. They're screaming for broth, right? And that's so much.
I'm
They're
always
so worried about it.
I'm waiting
you
for
know?
the drum fill on. When will I be famous?
You know, it's things that people don't care about. You know.
I think they're an extreme version of People.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny. They must have been terrible to work with on that tour, all those gigs they did. I can't imagine Jason from Bennett being in those sort of surroundings.
No.
Yeah, I just thought that was quite interesting, because I thought they were great at Shine On. But
he said, didn't he? He always was looking for some kind of connection with the audience.
I think that's important.
Yeah.
I like the band condition of "Don't be a cunt."
I've got that written here too. I mean, that's fair enough, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think that's fair enough.
It's just a good rule for life, generally, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you can't really argue with that, can you?
Yeah, like a lot of film directors have like a no dickheads rule, don't they? But then again, Google had in their manifesto, "Don't be evil," didn't they? But they didn't really stick to that either. So,
don't be evil. What's that mean?
That was like their motto. Don't be evil.
That's rubbish.
They weren't in the beginning.
No, I think you're
Google.
right. Yeah.
I still use them.
Yeah.
I know.
Yahoo's still pretty popular over here.
Is it?
Really?
Yeah.
I still use it for my
I
emails.
thought they've gone. What other search engines have we got?
Bing.
Bing. That's relatively new, isn't it? I used to joke with your sister Amy about that, actually. I said, why don't you just Bing it? And she's like, I'm not fucking using Bing.
No one else did either. What about like that paperclip guy?
That was before the internet.
What was that?
What's his name?
That was the Microsoft Assistant.
That's right.
Yeah. Was that AI?
He was a helpful chap, wasn't he? The old Mr. Paperclip.
Yeah.
He used to pop up, didn't he, and sort of give you helpful tips. I liked him. Wonderstuff formed in 1988. Like I said before, 80. That's what I've got written. I just read it wrong. 86. Now we were nowhere near any sort of music scene at that time.
No,
that's like 86 World Cup 86, wasn't it? Mexico. Yeah, it's a long fucking time ago.
Yeah, it's like when we were waking up, I don't know, 91 or something. You just forget that anything else existed before it. So I know you've got them, Luke, but I don't know their earlier albums at all. But at the time, I was really like.
So you can't remember anything pre 1991?
No.
I only got the earlier albums like in the last 5 years or so. I started with Never Loved Elvis, as I talked about in the interview, and I got Construction for the Modern Idiot when it came out, but I didn't get the other two until much later. Yeah.
Were they any good?
Yeah, they're very different. They're more like straight ahead kind of indie rock. But yeah, they're really good.
It was pre sort of violin and all that sort of stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah. The songs are all there though. Like the songwriting is there. It's good.
Yeah.
On Size of a Cow, I mean, I just loved that song at the time. I guess that really appealed. You know, it brought, like you were saying, it brought so many people into indie music.
At the end of the day, it's just a really, really good song, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a really good song. It's really well-crafted song, which, you know, it's got a lot going on in it.
It's pure joy. It's great.
Yeah. But the lyrics and everything, the piano, and it's just a really, like you say, really great feel-good track. And the video was really sort of fun and energetic. And just
that
everything.
video, that was, don't you think that was like a real mould for Britpop videos to come?
Yeah, maybe.
Right, like Country House.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And all right, Supergrass.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe it's just the same director, and that's why. But it seems to be copied or just echoed a lot in the coming years.
Yeah, kind of zany fun. Yeah, it's great. And well, as I said in the interview, I think one of the first albums that I bought that like proper kind of music. It wasn't the first album I bought, but it was the first kind of indie album I guess I bought. Never Loved Elvis.
We've touched on this before, just going back a little bit. He used to be a drummer, right? And he's right. It just sounds really exhausting, and you can't fuck up if you're a drummer, can you? You've got to be bang on it all the time.
But maybe it's just he wasn't quite good enough at that point.
Maybe.
You know,
I think with drumming, if you're good, it sort of becomes effortless, doesn't it? You just don't fuck up because you just know what you're doing, don't you?
Just in the zone.
But yeah, you see some of these drummers, and it is insane. I think we've spoken about him before, but Slipknot's drummer. Go and watch it now if you haven't seen Slipknot's drummer. It's just fucking mental. I don't know how they do it for the whole gig. Yeah, it must just be muscle memory, isn't it? Another thumbs up for the Smiths. Seems to be like quite a recurring theme amongst a lot of the bands that we talk to. We haven't really spoken about that much, have we?
Okay, putting aside Morrissey's racism, putting aside that, just like the Smiths on their own merit songs. What
I always said, I was never really a big fan of his voice, so I thought that if it had been a different singer, I probably would have liked it more. But then I also know that his voice was part of what made them so unique. So
and his lyrics, yeah. Dave,
they're just one of those.
Strike me as a Smiths fan.
Yeah, they've definitely been in a top 10. And they're just one of those bands that are just on their own, I think, in the sound. I mean, I'm sure there are bands that sound a bit like them, but I think there definitely is one, a more recent one. But just really like them.
My hot take is that they were all right.
All right.
Yeah, they've got probably like half a dozen songs which I like, and I think are amazing. And then outside of that, I'm not that interested.
How many albums? They didn't do that many albums, did they?
Don't know. Not that many. 3 or 4.
But a lot of people really, really love them, so they must have done.
I think Johnny Marr's guitar is pretty special, and all of that.
I just think with the Smiths, it's one of those where I can listen to a whole album, just enjoy it all. Whereas some bands, I shouldn't put the Wonderstuff in it, but I like them. But you listen to an album, and there's one or two that you're a bit annoying. Why couldn't they have done more Size of a Cow's?
Right.
Well, you can't, can you? Because it's an album's got to take you on a journey, man.
Yeah. What happens when you put on a Lighthouse Family album? Does that take you on a journey?
Yeah, into sleep.
Well, that's a bit. They got 2 just enormous banging songs,
and that's it.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Right.
Keep it on the Wonderstuff. I think like Never Loved Elvis is pretty much all killer, no filler. It's a proper album from start to finish. So I think there's not a bad track on it. There's quite a variation in the sound on it. There's some slower ones and stuff, but as a whole album, I think it's pretty flawless. So I liked it when his mum phoned. That was good.
So did I. I don't know why I made that noise, but yeah, so did I. Yeah, some reason I enjoyed that as well.
Kind of sweet.
It's nice to know someone's mum is still around, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was nice. And I think the way people sort of answer their phone calls, you can kind of tell what sort of person they are, I think.
Yeah.
You can see it's just like a nice relationship. Just from that, I think.
T-shirt bands. It was interesting, that part of the conversation, I think. And he was saying, when he went to see bands and stuff in the 80s, he would buy a program or whatever, maybe a poster, but he wouldn't buy a T-shirt, right? That's interesting. So when did band T-shirts become a thing?
I don't know. See, I always just assumed they'd always been around, but obviously not.
Well, they had, but not to the extent they were. I mean, like Frankie Says Relax was a big one, I guess, wasn't it? That was like a one-off.
I mean, does that mean back in the 60s, like people weren't walking around in Beatles T-shirts, I guess?
No, they weren't. No, they were buying the fucking lunchboxes and stuff, but they weren't wearing Beatles T-shirts.
Wasn't as cheap to make the clothes then.
Well, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, they were great, right? They had Frankie Says I'm the Unemployed, which is one of the best T-shirts ever made. Right?
I do like the Frankie Goes Hollywood T-shirts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it must have been sort of 80s that they sort of technology. I guess you couldn't really mass produce T-shirts back in the day. So.
Did people wear Smith's T-shirts?
Maybe.
Yeah, I think they did.
Maybe.
Yeah. But other bands that like around at that time, those kind of indie bands like, Orange Juice and whatever, Aztec Camera. And were they wearing, I don't think people were wearing like wedding present T-shirts and stuff. I don't think so.
Like if you think about it now, I'm thinking about the Beatles and I'm thinking about the gigs and stuff. Yeah, it's just people wearing their clothes. There's not anyone wearing band T-shirts, is it?
No.
It must have happened sometime in the 70s, perhaps. Sex Pistols.
Yeah, but even there...
Someone tell us if anyone's got an answer on this. When T-shirts became a thing,
they existed, but I reckon like here, like late 80s, early 90s. Oh, I'll tell you what, the Clash sold a lot of T-shirts, and they had loads of really cool designs.
But
so that was like late 70s
in their heyday, or was that after?
Yeah, again, maybe slightly after. I guess
you might
like
just
late, but still
might just not.
Late 70s, early 80s. The Clash had a lot.
We need an answer. Someone must know.
But with that scene in particular, it really did kind of cement the tribes and everything, didn't it? It really did create a whole youth subculture.
Left you in the first song of a U2 gig, so that's, you know.
He described U2 as infantile. That's funny.
I mean, I don't mind U2. Some of it.
Yeah.
They've become a bit annoying now, haven't they? But I think they did have a good period. Sort of late 80s, they were a pretty cool band. A bit cliche, but I guess they were a victim of their own success in the end.
Yeah.
When you're that big, you can only become shit, can't you? Really?
Yeah.
They're still going, aren't they?
Yeah, they're still going. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they played that massive ball thing in Las Vegas, didn't they?
Yeah, they still. The sphere thing.
Yeah.
That's right.
I want to go to that.
Yeah, it'd be good, wouldn't
Does
it?
look good.
I'm not sure about the outside bit. That's dangerous for drivers.
Fuck are you talking about?
The outside
Distracting.
bit. Yeah, I can't believe that's allowed. Because if you're driving along, you're just going to be looking at that, aren't you?
I got a question. Are you allowed tellies in cars in the UK?
I don't know if you're the passenger side, maybe. What, on the driver's side?
A lot of cars have tellies in Japan.
You can't watch telly while you're driving.
Well, you're not supposed to watch it when you're driving, but it's there.
We haven't got tellies.
They do.
That's too advanced.
I don't drive. I've just seen people with tellies in their car.
What, driving along watching the telly?
They're not supposed to be watching it, but it's there. It's on. It was interesting that he didn't like Top of the Pops, though.
Yeah, that's what I got. But for good reason. He said that the audience got treated like shit.
Yeah, it did sound pretty crap when he described it.
Yeah.
I mean,
kids bossed around, Jimmy.
Not given any water or anything.
Knock the sparkle off a little bit.
Yeah, we just see the end product, I guess. But he just wasn't happy with the way it was run. The producers were really unfriendly. Yeah, treated all the kids like shit.
It's surprising, actually, how positive everyone else has been about it.
Yeah, maybe they didn't see that bit of it as, I don't know. Because, I can't imagine a lot of our guests would be that happy about that sort of thing either. Really.
And like Luke said, I watched the performance and, he's just taking a piss because he
is. He's not even attempting to hold a microphone or anything. He's just he's taking a piss. Which is that's the way to deal with it, isn't it? Yeah.
It brings us nicely segues onto. I mean, remember when Kurt Cobain was on Top of the Pops, and he famously did that weird version of "Smells Like Teen Spirit."
Load up on drugs and kill your friends.
But he hated Nirvana.
Oh my god,
hated him.
That fucking killed me, man.
He fucking hated him.
We just got to say it like it is. He's wrong. He's
wrong. He's wrong.
I mean, I don't think any of us ever saw them live, right? But looking back on YouTube, I was
He's got to be wrong.
Reading. They were good.
They look amazing. Right? Yeah. He said he saw them 5 times, and every time Kurt fucked it up.
It was raw, wasn't it? That was part of the energy.
But it's good to get a different perspective. It's great.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but everyone's, like we say, it's subjective. Everyone's into, but that's the first time that sort of. I mean, I get what you're saying about the grunge scene in general. It was very. I mean, I liked it because it's dark, but it wasn't like a positive scene, was it? Really?
No. I can understand why it might come across as kind of dreary and fucking.
Yeah, I get that.
Down. Yeah.
But like he said, he saw other grunge bands like Dinosaur Jr. and they were great and stuff. But he just thought that Nirvana.
Just didn't like Kurt.
Didn't like him.
He's wrong, but it's fair. Yeah.
He did love Faith No More though, so.
Yeah, well, let him off. Dave's always asking to hear about the songwriting process. So the way he described writing Size of a Cow was
Yeah.
was
Yeah, I
really
love
cool,
that.
right? Just basically putting it together in his head when he went to pick up a parcel, got home, got it down on tape, man. That's fucking incredible, right?
But the thing is, back then you had to he'd have had to sort of keep it in head till he got home. But now you can just get your phone out and record it onto your phone, right? But yeah, back then you'd have had to. You could have imagine if you'd had written a hit song and you'd forgotten it by the time you got home.
Yeah.
Well, there
Do you know
must
what I
be
mean?
many
Yeah.
songs.
There must be hundreds of thousands.
Imagine that you've written a fucking a banger. You're like, yes, this is
Yeah.
a banger. You get home, you're like, oh, fuck.
What
Forgotten
was it? Yeah.
Yeah, phones these days, you can just record it straight away, can't you?
Can we talk about like the idea of selling out? So,
No.
you know, he said like, you know, the old fans hated it when they did Size of a Cow, and especially when they did Dizzy, because they weren't kind of indie schmindy enough anymore, and all the teeny boppers started coming to the gigs. I mean,
It's
what do
one
we
of
think about
those,
all of that?
isn't
Yeah.
it? So, like, you've got to evolve as a band, haven't you? You have to. It wasn't like they said, oh, we're going to write music like this now because we want our audience to grow and we want to be. They wrote different music because their music changed. Like they were listening to different stuff. That was just the evolution of the band. That's not their fault, is it? Or
And he clearly doesn't care about that shit. You know, he's pretty pragmatic. He was talking about when you compared him to the Levelers and that, who he likes.
Yeah.
But, you know, they do that stuff, socio-political stuff. I don't. You know, it's just he's just not into anything like that whatsoever.
It's true. At the time, those two did get lumped together just because they both had someone playing a violin or a fiddle. You know, that was the only really similarity. They weren't really similar bands, but I remember at the time, people like the Levelers and the Wonderstuff were sort of in the same sort of ilk, but they weren't really. They were totally different bands.
But probably most people that like Wonderstuff will like the Levelers and vice versa.
Yeah, I guess.
But I agree with you.
Yeah. But also, it's interesting. He said, you know, he was worried about like, you know, younger kids being kicked in the head by some crusty with DMs on and that kind of thing, which is, again, I think that's really nice. You know, it's reminded me of when we went to see the Senseless Things in our first gig, and that big crusty dude sat in the middle of the fucking mosh pit and tried to grab our legs and try to, knock us over and shit. Yeah. Well, again, we were like the youngest kids in there, I guess, right? We were just targeting like the weakest, youngest kids there. But I mean, what a dick. But so Miles is totally right. There was shit like that going on, you know.
I kicked him in the face in the end. I kicked him in the face.
You didn't. You didn't.
What did you do?
You ran away.
Probably cried.
You did from the horse.
I probably
cried and ran away.
Most bands do care about their fans, don't they? You do see a lot of bands stopping gigs and stuff and getting people help. I think you've got to, haven't you? You'd be a total prick if you didn't do that.
Have you ever seen it? I went to see Henry Rollins in Yokohama, and there was loads of like there's like a military base not far from Yokohama, so there were loads of like American like military fucking bros in the audience, like being complete fucking cunts basically. And like Rollins like stopped the song midway, and he's like you fucking limp dicks, fucking wacky whatever. So this like military guy, get the fuck out of here, and he kind of made everyone like make way and get him out of here. So you could have jumped on the head of that, times. That half your size. What the fuck are you doing? Fucking pussy, fucking small dick, motherfucker. It was so good, man. It was so good. And the guy, he was totally embarrassed and had to walk out.
Yeah.
Do the walk of shame through the whole audience, man. It was great.
Yeah,
great.
Were you there? A few times.
Yeah.
Moving on to Event 414. They were good, weren't they? I mean, he sort of told the story because he first sort of heard Morgan's bass playing, and we've spoken about it a few times. I still say that he's, one of the best bass players ever to have lived.
It's good to hear that Event 414 have got a new album coming. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, no, I saw something like that the other day. I saw a clip of the recording of it, which he spoke about as well quite fondly. Like, they really enjoyed the recording process on that, which is always nice. Because he basically said, didn't he, I don't want to do any more recording because it costs money. And the producer persuaded him to give it a go, and they loved it. They wrote all the songs in that session, didn't they?
Yeah.
Which is cool. Yeah.
I think they're a bit more your kind of music, Neil. Vent 414, as opposed to the Wonderstuff. They're a bit more kind of straight ahead.
I didn't want to say,
right?
I didn't want to say, but the Wonderstuff were probably a bit too upbeat for me.
Yeah,
but I did really enjoy them at Shine On. I did really enjoy them at Shine On. But yeah, it's not my go-to listen, is it? It's
no. Vent 414 are more your field, eh? Yeah.
Makes sense. All right. That's it for this one. Thanks so much, Miles, for coming on. Really enjoyed that one. Really appreciate your time.
That was quite a big one for me. It was really exciting. One of my first album purchases. I was like a huge young teenage fan of them. So that was a big one. It's great.
If you have enjoyed it, please do give it a thumbs up. Get involved in the comments, and please do subscribe to the channel. And like we said before, if you're listening, then please do take time to go and give us a rating and a review, because it really does help other people find the podcast. Podcast is growing nicely, so let's keep that going.
If you're new to the podcast, some of the bands we talked about, so PWEI itself, Senseless Things, we've got interviews with them in the archives, so just have a browse through. And we've got loads of other interviews with people from around that time who I'm sure you'll love. Mega City 4 were mentioned. We got an interview with them. Levelers was mentioned. We got an interview with them. So yeah, dig in and have a listen.
Coming a bit of a family tree of 90s music, which is nice. Luke, mixtape. I've already blown smoke up your ass for this episode already. So
pressure's on. All right. Yeah, I'll see what I can do. It's mostly finished actually. It's got a good mix on it, so it should be good.
Don't put U2 on it, will you?
I'm not going to. No, there's no point. Right? There's no point.
No, yeah, fuck it. They made us listen to their album on the iPhone. So
Here you go.
This is our moment.
Force it on anyone else. Yeah.
Dave, hope you feel better next week. Finish this one off.
Thank you. See you in a minute.